This video is an overview of Topic 4 of the RE5 exams. The title for Topic 4 is Adhere to the specific codes of conduct. This topic contains 2 videos. This is Video 1. Codes of Conduct and FAIS. Section 15 and 16 of the FAIS Act makes reference to codes of conduct that the Commissioner shall issue, principles to apply, and minimum information that must be contained in the codes of conduct. The following codes have been issued. General Code of Conduct for authorized FSPs and representatives. Specific Code of Conduct for authorized FSPs and representatives conducting short-term deposits, savings accounts. Code of Conduct for authorized FSPs and representatives conducting forex investment business. Codes of Conduct for administrative and discretionary FSPs, FSP Category 2 and 3. 2 codes are outlined in one document. The General Code of Conduct is the most applicable as it applies widely across the financial services industry, whereas the other codes of conduct apply to specific types of products or business. Principles from the Act and minimum inclusions. Act honestly and fairly, and with due skill, care and diligence, in other words legal carefulness, in the interests of clients and the integrity of the financial services industry. Have and employ effectively the resources, procedures and appropriate technological systems for the proper performance of professional activities, for example, using a needs analysis program to determine clients' needs. Obtain from clients appropriate and available information regarding their financial situations, financial product experience and objectives in connection with the financial service required. Take into consideration all possible circumstances and consequences before acting, and treat clients fairly in a situation of conflicting interests. Comply with all applicable statutory or common law requirements applicable to the conduct of business. Section 16 of the FAIS Act outlines the minimum information that the code or codes must include, such as the following. The making of adequate disclosures of relevant material information, including disclosures of actual or potential own interests, in relation to dealings with clients. Adequate and appropriate record-keeping. Avoidance of fraudulent and misleading advertising, canvassing and marketing. Proper safe-keeping, separation and protection of funds and transaction documentation of clients. Where appropriate, suitable guarantees or professional indemnity or fidelity insurance cover. The control or prohibition of incentives given or accepted by a provider. General and specific duties of the provider, FSP. General duties, Section 2 of the General Code. Under general duties, a provider, FSP and representatives, must at all times render financial services, honestly, fairly, with due skill, care and diligence, and in the interests of clients and the integrity of the financial services industry. When a provider renders a financial service, representations made and information provided to a client by the provider must be factually correct, must be provided in plain language, avoid uncertainty or confusion and not be misleading, must be adequate and appropriate in the circumstances of the particular financial service, taking into account the established or reasonably assumed level of knowledge of the client. Must be provided timeously so as to afford the client reasonably sufficient time to make an informed decision about the proposed transaction. May be provided orally and, at the client's request, confirmed in writing within a reasonable time after such request. Information provided in writing or by means of standard forms or format must be in a clear and readable print size, spacing and format. General and specific duties of the provider, FSP. Specific duties, Section 3 of the General Code. Disclosures. Disclosures are contained in Sections 4, 5 and 7 of the General Code of Conduct. Section 4 deals with information on product suppliers. Section 5 deals with information on providers. Section 7 deals with information about financial service. The purpose of disclosures is to provide as much information to enable the client can make an informed decision. More on disclosures. Information on product suppliers, Section 4 of the General Code. A provider other than a direct marketer must at the earliest reasonable opportunity, and only where appropriate, furnish the client with full particulars of the following information about the relevant product supplier and, where such information is provided orally, must confirm such information within 30 days in writing. Disclosures must include the following: name, physical location, postal and telephone contact details of the product supplier. The contractual relationship between FSP and the product supplier, if any, and whether the FSP has contractual relationships with other product suppliers. Names and contact details of the relevant compliance and complaints departments of the product supplier. If applicable, that the FSP holds more than 10% shares or has the equivalent financial interest in the product supplier, and that the FSP received more than 30% of total remuneration, including commission in the last 12 months, from the product supplier. More details of the information to be provided on product suppliers is contained in page 61 of the study guide. Where a provider other than a direct marketer renders a financial service to a client, the provider must at earliest reasonable opportunity furnish the client with full particulars of the following information and, where such information is provided orally, must confirm such information within 30 days in writing. Disclosures must include the following: full business and trade names, registration number, postal and physical addresses, telephone and, where applicable, cellular phone number, internet and email addresses, as well as the names and contact details of appropriate contact persons or offices. Concise details of the legal and contractual status of the provider. Details of the relevant product supplier. Details of which entity accepts responsibility for the actions of the provider or representative. Details of the extent to which the client has to accept responsibility. Names and contact details of the relevant compliance department. In the case of a representative, the details of the provider to which the representative is contracted. Details of the financial services which the provider is authorized to provide in terms of the relevant license. Any conditions or restrictions applicable to its license. More details of the information to be provided on product suppliers are contained in page 62 the study guide. More on disclosures. Information on providers, Section 5 of the General Code. Contacting of client. Section 6 of the General Code. A provider must in making contact arrangements, and in all communications and dealings with a client, act honorably, professionally and with due regard to the convenience of the client. and b. At the commencement of any contact, visit or call initiated by the provider, explain the purpose thereof and at the earliest opportunity, provide the information referred to in Section 5. A provider other than a direct marketer must provide to a client a reasonable and appropriate general explanation of the nature and material terms of the relevant contract or transaction. Any material contractual information and any material illustrations, projections or forecasts in the possession of the provider. Full and appropriate information of the following: name, class or type of financial product concerned. Nature and extent of benefits to be provided, including details of the manner in which such benefits are derived or calculated and the manner in which they will accrue or be paid. Information on the completion and submission of applications for a contract. Information on commissions and earnings. Annual statements. Information regarding Forex investments as contained in the Code of Conduct for Forex Investment Business. More details of the information to be provided on product suppliers is contained in page 64 of the study guide. Disclosures. Information about financial service, Section 7 of the General Code. Conflicts of interest. Incorporated by Section 3 of the General Code of Conduct and Board Notice 58 of 2010. Disclosing conflicts of interest is still part of disclosures. Conflict of interest means a situation where a provider or a representative has an actual or potential interest that may influence the objective exercising of obligations to the client or prevent the rendering of financial services in an unbiased and fair manner. It will therefore occur when two or more interests conflict with one another and can render the financial service biased or inadequate. Define what needs to be in a conflict of interest policy. Conflict of interest management policy. 1. Every FSP must have, maintain and implement the policy, and it must manage conflicts of interest as well as provide mechanisms to identify conflict, methods to avoid conflict, or reasons for conflict and how it is mitigated, methods to disclose conflict, processes, etc., to ensure compliance with the policy, and consequences for non-compliance. Summary. The concept of ethical conduct in the financial services environment. In the financial services industry, the FAIS General Code of Conduct provides a framework for ethical behavior by the role players. It gives guidance on issues of right and wrong with regard to different aspects of the behavior of the role players, especially when faced with difficult ethical choices.